2025 was certainly a banger year for the movies, with one battle after another, Sinners, Weapons, and Wake Up Dead Man being just a few of the films that have been on everyone's lips in recent months. But with film lovers having an embarrassment of riches to choose from, it's only inevitable that a bevy of equally great films will end up slipping through the cracks and being overlooked. And that's unfortunately the case with these films from the past 12 months, which, despite receiving rave reviews in many cases, simply came and went without making much of a peep at all. Let's get into them. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here's our list of the most overlooked movies from 2025. First up, Sisu: Road to Revenge. World War II set action thriller Sisu came totally out of nowhere in 2022 and became something of a cult hit for its no-nonsense approach to brutal action, elevated by a terrifically stoic central performance from Jorma Tommila. It was assumed then that Sisu: Road to Revenge would benefit from the pre-existing fanbase and enjoy far more success than its predecessor, especially with critics largely deeming it a solid improvement over the first. And yet, Sisu 2 ended up grossing an underwhelming $9.2 million globally, falling far short of the original's $14.3 million haul, while costing pretty much double that. Considering that Road to Revenge basically just doubled down on everything people liked about the first Sisu, amping up the action to almost Looney Tunes-inspired levels of insanity while tossing in legendary character actors like Richard Brake and Stephen Lang, it's a bit puzzling that this one hasn't really done better. But in the very least, it's a fair expectation that the sequel will at least be a hit with dads on streaming over the coming months, so it'll probably do fine, all things considered. Next up, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You debuted to rave reviews at Sundance and went on to win Rose Byrne the Silver Bear for Best Leading Performance at Berlin, though ultimately cracked just $1.3 million during its theatrical release, before being quietly sent to streaming. While Byrne is continuing to attract Oscar buzz for her sublime performance in the film as a whole hasn't picked up much chatter outside of the usual award circuits, despite being one of the most brilliantly crafted films of 2025. Seriously, Byrne gives one of the best performances of the year, or really any year, as Linda, an ever-exhausted mother who cares for her daughter who suffers from an eating disorder. While it might not be the most mainstream skewing premise, writer and director Mary Bronstein brings visionary flair to the fore, making some bold directorial choices which help it stand out from other similarly premised tired parent dramas. For one, it's basically a horror film dressed up as a psychological drama, albeit one colored with flecks of black comedy, all of it woven together skillfully by Bronstein, Byrne, and an ensemble cast that includes Conan O'Brien and A$AP Rocky. Seriously, go watch it if you haven't already. It's getting a wider UK theatrical release soon. It might even have happened by the time this video comes out, but yeah, go watch it if you haven't. Next up, Caught Stealing. If you went into Caught Stealing completely blind, it would probably be the case that you wouldn't have thought that it would be directed by Darren Aronofsky, because this shaggy, zoinks, crime romp feels totally unlike anything he's ever produced before. Had to drop the shaggy bomb in there. I had to do it. You put the word shaggy in a script, I'm gonna go zoinks, and it's gonna be great. You're all gonna enjoy it, right? But yeah, effectively Aronofsky's game attempt at making a Guy Ritchie film, albeit like a Guy Ritchie film from like 20 years ago, Caught Stealing is a rough-hewn but consistently entertaining yarn propelled forward by its unrelenting pace, witty dialogue, and terrific ensemble cast led by a never better Austin Butler. And in case you didn't feel old yet, period films can now be set in the 1990s, and Aronofsky so perfectly captures the vibe of the era, all while making New York City feel like a character in its own right. Plus, in addition to serving up some unexpected and unexpectedly brutal sleights of hand among its bouncier moment-to-moment storytelling, Caught Stealing proves that even filmmakers with an extremely vivid, seemingly concrete style can still surprise us totally out of nowhere. You wouldn't want every Aronofsky movie to be like this, but it does make for a fun palate cleanser, but one that audiences largely slept on. On the way, The Surfer. Nicolas Cage may not be the box office force of nature that he was back in the 1990s, but even so, it's maddening how little attention his kaleidoscopic new psychological thriller, The Surfer, has received. This Australia-set giant from Lorcan Finnegan casts Cage as a man who finds himself bristling against the violent locals when trying to surf at a gorgeous beach. I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all been there. Beach bullies, the epidemic that never goes away, right? That's the one thing that Looney Tunes has been consistently right about for like over a century. Less than a century, nearly a century. It may sound like the setup is pretty weird for a workaday thriller, but The Surfer is a decidedly weirder film than it first appears. Finnegan borrowing literally and lovingly from the Ozploitation tradition per the film's hypnotic visuals, blistering heat, and central existential odyssey. As per Cage's resurgence, he is once again terrific here as the unnamed protagonist. Like, few actors can sell a descent into madness quite like him, and even so many decades into a career full of madcap turns, he still finds something unique to latch onto. And if this isn't enough, the film also offers up a remarkable final performance from the late Julian McMahon as the malevolent surf guru, Scally. Go watch it, it's a great time. On the way, a Steven Soderbergh banger, Black Bag. Right at the top of the list of most egregiously undeserving box office flops of 2025, we have Steven Soderbergh's deliriously entertaining spy thriller, Black Bag. Granted, Focus Features made scarcely little effort to market this one, and holding reviews back until late in the game was probably a really bad idea, especially considering the raves it largely received once it came out in cinemas. And yeah, Black Bag is the sort of film that's becoming increasingly rare in the current climate, which is a huge shame for people who like really gutsy and punchy genre fare. Black Bag is a modestly scaled yet star-studded genre film that's focused less on explosions, although there are a couple of them, and more on tightly wound suspense and witty repartee between its expertly played characters. It's like a whodunit meets a Len Dayton and John le Carre kind of spy movie set in the modern day. That's like an amazing combination, especially when you throw Steven Soderbergh into the mix and Michael Fassbender and also Cate Blanchett, who are just terrific together. Blanchett and Fassbender prove once again why they're such magnetic stars, but the entire ensemble cast is electric here, ensuring that Black Bag is a hypnotic sit for all of its svelte 94-minute runtime. Granted, its hefty $60 million budget was a massive risk in the present theatrical landscape, but even so, the film was pretty much sent out to die, despite being one of the year's best. Really annoying. Again, if you missed this one, go watch it. On the way, Dead of Winter. Not every thriller needs to reinvent the wheel to deserve your attention, in which case we come to the criminally underseen Dead of Winter. The new film from 21 Bridges' Brian Kirk is built around two enticing feats of against-type casting. Firstly, we have Emma Thompson as a troubled American woman who inadvertently interrupts the kidnapping of a teenage girl and is swiftly forced to act. One of the kidnappers, meanwhile, is played by the ever underappreciated Judy Greer, who we all love dearly. The novelty factor of seeing Thompson and Greer playing characters they've never attempted before is undeniable, but Dead of Winter also happens to be a well-crafted, snow-top thriller with a keen sense of pace that easily delivers the Fargo-adjacent vibes in abundance. Is it the most original or diverting film released in 2025? Well, no, not really, but it's well-crafted dad movie fodder with striking visuals and fine performances, and sometimes that's exactly what the appetite craves. And trust me on this, I'm like a dad movie connoisseur. Next up, Pillion. One of the most confident directorial debuts of the year, Harry Leighton's Pillion has received well-earned raves ever since its Cannes premiere, though this comedic BDSM drama, which is a great combination of words to put together, hasn't even cracked 1 million at the box office. Harry Melling and Alexander Skarsgård are equally terrific as our two leads here. The former a shy, anxious gay man, and the latter a mysterious, ultra-confident biker who he begins a BDSM relationship with. Leighton, meanwhile, does a marvelous job of keeping an even handle on the film's tone, which has plenty of fun with the unexpected pairing of Melling and Skarsgård, all while operating as a serious-minded and even-handed look at an often misunderstood subculture. And above all else, Pillion is an intimate, well-woven character study that remains true to its characters to the very end, avoiding the sentimental flourishes you might expect with anything involving a romance in 2025 and beyond. Though the film recently scooped 4 gongs at the British Independent Film Awards, including Best British Independent Film, this sadly doesn't seem likely to translate into any love from the Oscars, which is all kinds of dumb. On the way, Roofman. Who in their right mind expected Blue Valentine director Derek Cianfrance to deliver one of the low-key funniest films of the year? Not me. For while there is a sad, serious core to the true story of Jeffrey Manchester, here played by Channing Tatum, Roofman expertly balances its tone and mines every crumb of humor from its absurd yet real premise, centered around a man who hides out in a Toys R Us store after escaping prison. Channing Tatum has possibly never been better than he is here, ensuring the inherent ridiculousness of Manchester's cockamamie scheme is double underlined on screen, but also guaranteeing that we feel sympathy for a marginalized man desperate to provide for his family. And Tatum here is ably aided by a cracking supporting cast, including the always brilliant Kirsten Dunst, Lakeith Stanfield, Juno Temple, and Peter Dinklage. Considering how broadly Roofman was marketed, it's genuinely surprising that the $19 million crime pick didn't become a box office breakout, instead flopping and vanishing from sight within weeks, which again, super annoying. This one was a great time. Next up, Twinless. Despite earning rave reviews since its premiere at Sundance, which feels like a running theme with the movies on this list, the deliciously twisted black comedy Twinless barely made a dent at the box office and has pretty much already vanished from the cultural conversation. And that is a damn shame, because James Sweeney's film is one of the most audaciously clever and unexpected of 2025. A daring tale centered around 2 men, played by Sweeney and Dylan O'Brien, who meet at a support group for twinless twins grieving the loss of their other half in their twindom, siblingdom. I definitely didn't mess that up. But this isn't quite the quirky, sweet Sundance indie the marketing may have led you to believe. It's actually a much darker and more interesting film with some genuine surprises up its sleeves. Writer and director and star Sweeney confirms himself to be a major talent with this production, but it's O'Brien who surprises the most with a genuinely moving and at times volcanic performance of a young man struggling to reckon with the loss of his sibling. Though Twinless did at least pick up a few well-deserved nominations at the Independent Spirit Awards, it hasn't made nearly the splash that it deserved to. On the way, Train Dreams. Though it's been slowly picking up steam, as an awards contender since recently releasing on Netflix, Clint Bentley's mesmerizing drama Train Dreams deserves so much more attention than it's gotten so far. Quite arguably the best Terrence Malick film not to be directed by Terrence Malick, Train Dreams is a gorgeous and deeply affecting tribute to those who helped build the backbone of the United States throughout the early 20th century. Joel Edgerton gives a quietly devastating performance as logger and railroad worker Robert Granier, while the supporting cast is peppered with memorable turns from the likes of Felicity Jones, Kerry Condon, and especially William H. Macy, who has the best mustache in Hollywood history as a running theme across his entire career. I love William H. Macy. Put William H. Macy in more movies, please, and thank you. And on top of all of this, it's also one of the most visually stunning films of the year, courtesy of Adolfo Veloso's boxy landscape cinematography, and Bryce Dessner's tender score ensures the major emotional beats land with a bruising impact. Train Dreams is hardly feel-good comfort food, but it is a beautiful adaptation of Dennis Johnson's 2011 novella that manages to tell an ambitious and sweeping story in a tight 102 minutes. Next up, Tornado. Scottish filmmaker John McLean provided one of the unexpected great movie flexes of the 2010s when he dropped Slow West in 2015, a painterly remix of the Western genre which starred Michael Fassbender and Cody Smith-McPhee in the American Old West. The film was widely lauded, and yet McLean stayed out of the spotlight following its release, waiting a whopping 10 years to drop his next film, Tornado, a Scottish samurai western set in the 18th century Highlands. Hell yeah. With the cast including Tim Roth and the up-and-coming Koki, it seemed as if McLean was about to repeat his magic trick again, but for one reason or another, Tornado didn't land with nearly as much buzz as its predecessor, being met with tepid reviews out of Glasgow Film Festival before it could develop any kind of pre-release momentum. Which, having seen the film, feels both incredibly baffling and frustrating to me. Like Slow West before it, McLean achieves a compelling remix of genre with Tornado, running the classic Japanese samurai picture through a Gaelic lens with a story that deals with both traditional genre themes, as well as those more unique to Scottish mythology and modern identity. It may be that Tornado's manifesto was too esoteric to break through in quite the same way that Slow West did before it, but that doesn't take away from just how brilliant and spirited a piece of cinema it is. It's my favorite movie of the year, and yeah, please do go watch it. I know most of this list has been me going, please watch this movie, please, but with Tornado, please do go watch it, because it is a great time. On the way, Relay. The great David Mackenzie of Hell or High Water fame serves up one of the year's most distinctive and memorable thrillers with Relay, centered around a fixer played by Riz Ahmed who specializes in mediating between whistleblowers and the companies that they expose. Justin Piasecki's script does a masterful job of dropping audiences into a fleshed-out world of corporate espionage that's at once totally unknown and yet feels wholly believable within our own reality. The film wears its inspiration from classic 70s conspiracy thrillers on its sleeve, so no wonder that I really liked it, but also infuses the formula with a more contemporary sheen. While Riz Ahmed is terrific in the central role, and Lily James is solid as the focal whistleblower he attempts to help. Relay is a same but different stab at the paranoia-laced surveillance thriller, and even though it almost collapses into the weight of its own overly tricky third act, which has a really bad ending twist, it's still one of the most imaginative and well-executed films of the type from the past 12 months. On the way, Sovereign. Nick Offerman has carved out quite the exemplary dramatic career post-Parks and Recreation, and he just might have given his finest performance to date in the superb and based on true events crime thriller, Sovereign. Here, Offerman stars as Jerry Kane, a devotee of the American sovereign citizen movement, whose members refuse to recognize the government statutes unless they voluntarily consent to them. It's a fascinating, albeit misguided subculture which audiences likely don't know too much about, and while it would have been easy for writer and director Christian Swiegel to turn Kane into a caricature ripe for mockery, he instead digs deeper into his humanity. Offerman is perfectly cast here as the steadfast Kane, while Jacob Tremblay is also terrific as his strung-along son Joe. And Dennis Quaid also delivers one of his more impactful screen turns as a police chief who crosses paths with the pair. Make no mistake though, the movie is a tough shit that pulls no punches, but on the strength of its performances and the non-judgmental window it offers into a strange sect of American society, it's well worth watching. Next up, Freaky Tales. Rather than dive deeper down the blockbuster rabbit hole after making Captain Marvel, Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck decided to follow it up with a most unexpected of things. An anthology action comedy set in 1987 California. Like just about every anthology ever made, the 4 stories here aren't entirely consistent quality-wise, but as a collection of twisted, interconnected stories centered around a battle between punks and Nazi skinheads, it is one of the most divertingly odd films of the year. It doesn't hurt either that Bowden and Fleck managed to front their cast with Pedro Pascal and Ben Mendelsohn, both of whom appear to relish the opportunity to do something different within the safe confines of a weird anthology project. And again, as has been typed for this list so far, though Lionsgate barely gave it a theatrical release before dumping it into the streaming abyss, this is exactly the sort of materially strange and transfixing film that earns itself a cult of dedicated fans years after it comes out, so here's hoping. Next up, Sorry Baby. One of the most impressive directorial debuts of the year, Sorry Baby takes a somewhat familiar dramatic setup and handles it in a wholly disarming fashion. As writer, director, and star, Eva Victor brings a blunt honesty to the delicate subject matter on display while avoiding melodramatic cliches, surmising that the traumatic central event of the movie need not define the rest of a person's existence, nor should what follows be a wildly melodramatic journey of self-reclamation. To balance comedy with drama in a story like this is no easy feat, yet Victor's iron grasp on tone makes it look effortless, immediately establishing them as a serious talent to watch for whatever they do next. And while Sorry Baby has picked up some awards juice as of late, particularly with a Best Actress Golden Globe nom for Victor, considering the uniqueness with which it approaches an urgent social subject, it's a film that absolutely deserves to break out of its indie film awards darling niche. Next up, Plainclothes. Though widely praised since its Sundance premiere, Carmen Emmy's feature debut Plainclothes earned less than $250,000 at the box office and has failed to garner much in the way of sustained awards buzz since. Tom Blythe is fantastic as Lucas, an undercover police officer who entraps gay men in 1990s New York, and yet who becomes increasingly drawn to one of his targets, Andrew, played by Russell Tovey. An unexpected fusion of thriller and romance, Plainclothes is also a devastating examination of sexual repression and the forces which have historically conspired to persecute gay men. The interplay between Blythe and Tovey is superb, each so beautifully selling the crushing anxiety of keeping their true selves hidden. It's also gorgeously shot and edited, bouncing between 4:3 and 16:9 aspect ratios as it shifts back and forth among time periods, while canny use of VHS-esque video to depict Lucas's memories evokes the period setting in tactile fashion. Next up, Hard Truths. Despite being the latest film from venerated British auteur Mike Leigh and benefiting from rightful Oscar buzz from Marianne Jean-Baptiste, Hard Truths barely made a dent when it released at the start of 2025, resulting in one of the softest box office runs of Leigh's entire career. While Leigh's kitchen sink drama about a depressed, standoffish, middle-aged woman, played by Jean-Baptiste, was never going to be a commercial juggernaut, it did little business at all outside of the filmmaker's most die-hard supporters, no matter that it's another fantastically evocative work from the filmmaker. Jean-Baptiste is flawless here as protagonist Pansy, and while it isn't easy to spend even just 97 minutes with such a combative character, which may be a part of the film's appeal problem, the result is a study that feels astoundingly down-to-earth and believable. Hard Truths doesn't have the broad appeal of Leigh's more popular works, but it is nevertheless an expertly crafted lo-fi drama, and among the very finest British films released over the last 12 months. On the way, I Swear. Though it performed relatively well at the British box office and nabbed 2 trophies at the British Independent Film Awards, I Swear is a film that the world needs to know about. If cinema is a machine for empathy above almost all things, then Kirk Jones's new film is one of the most important of the year, shining a light as it does on the too often misunderstood condition that is Tourette's syndrome. Robert Aramayo gives a masterful and deeply empathetic performance as real-life Tourette's activist John Davidson, in a film that manages to both confess the enormous difficulty of living with the condition and accept that it isn't without its laughs too. We've all seen the heartwarming British sentimental underdog drama done to death over the years, but I Swear's unique throughline lets it soar above, managing to educate its audience while telling an affecting and achingly humanistic story. On the way, Lynn Ramsey's Die My Love. Lynn Ramsey has always been a filmmaker operating on the fringes of the medium, and though Die My Love is her most star-studded effort to date, it's still largely flown under the radar outside of the most hardcore cinephiles. And in fairness, even for Ramsey's singular standards, this tale of marital strife and postnatal mania is a challenging sit, albeit one that's topped by a mesmerizing performance by Jennifer Lawrence as an embattled woman losing her grip on reality. Now, this isn't Ramsey's first exploration of the toils of motherhood, having previously broached the same subject in We Need to Talk About Kevin, but it might just be her most bluntly powerful, tying into a wider examination of female domestication in the modern world. Ramsey's boldly unwelcoming execution may ultimately leave Lawrence unrecognized by the Academy for her arguably career-best performance, but she's not the only one putting in stellar work here. Robert Pattinson, Sissy Spacek, and Nick Nolte all shine in roles both big and small. Expect this one to become a cherished cult classic in the years to come, or at least I hope so. Next up, Sharp Corner. Ben Foster is one of the most enticingly intense actors of his generation, so it's a crying shame that his new thriller Sharp Corner has fallen upon deaf ears despite receiving raves ever since its premiere at TIFF 2024. The tantalizing premise revolves around a man called Josh McCall, played by Foster, a guy who becomes obsessed with watching a dangerous road near his new home, which has caused a high volume of car accidents. It's a deeply strange concept, and yet one that's skillfully wrought by writer and director Jason Buxton, even though it's Foster's outstanding performance that keeps the whole thing held together. The film's tough-to-categorize nature, stark tonal shifts, and general refusal to provide concrete answers won't be for everyone. But for fans of both Foster and weird cinema TM in general, this is a bewildering plunge well worth taking. And despite the grimness of its actual concept, it's also surprisingly funny at times too. Again, make sure you go watch it.